Welcome everyone. Nice to see you. I'm going to ask everyone on the Zoom please to mute themselves because we've been getting some very funny feedback things, and I'm going to turn off my camera to minimize the amount of traffic on the network, and then I shall hand over to Mam. So over to you.
Right. This particular picture that I'm dealing with today, I've got to remember to talk to them. Sorry for my back. It was actually taken when we went on our holiday to Orkney this year, and it's the road to Skallabray. You might have heard of Skallabray. It's the little Neolithic village that's built entirely of stone. It was hidden in a sandstorm donkeys years ago, sort of in Neolithic times, and then covered by a high wind and storm in the 1700s, I think. And they found all manner of exciting things there, even dressers built of stone in the little houses. So it was all very exciting. It was very interesting to go there. However, while I was there, I noticed this headland with its lovely dark cliff edge and this beautiful winding path. And I was ever in Orkney, these massive skies. In fact, when I was there, the first half dozen pictures I took were all sky. Couldn't see anything else. It was so brilliant. Now, one of the things that cameras do is to squash the picture. So what I'm going to do is...
Sorry, I can't hear very well, Rachel.
Stretch that way a bit. So when I draw it, let's turn it this way. When I draw it, with a pencil. Okay. When I draw it, or if I draw it, I will make this little cliff about twice as deep as it is, and other things in that picture to stay. So the finished picture won't be entirely like what we've got in this picture, but I will be adjusting for the, thank you, darling. I will be adjusting for the things that cameras do. So it's a little more than halfway down. I'm just going to put the cliff edge in there. Got a beautiful sky. It comes to about a third of the way across. So I'm going to drop that cliff there. Now, if you look at that line there, it's twice as big as the little line there. Oh, in there. Probably get it in straight on my painting, so I'm not worried. There's a little wall here to give us room for the sea, and then this lovely curly path which starts about here and back and down and round here and then wanders off over there. One of the things to watch out for is to avoid what's happened in this picture. This line of the path goes straight through the corner of the picture. That's not a good thing to see when you're doing a painting. So either move it up or move it further along the bottom edge, which is what I'm going to do. So we have this path here. You see a little bit of it here. Then goes down to nothing. Bit here. I'm going to bring it down to there, because it's not actually going through the form. Right, and that's about all you need to put in. If you overdraw it, you've got a drawing, not a painting, what you want to paint. Now let's look at the sky. One of the things, if you like a very flat, swept sky, in one colour, like it is down here, then you can do it as a wash, as a standard wash, where you take your paint across and you catch the drip and you go on and on and on. I'm going to revert to the way I used to do it. I usually work from the side and go that way. Now, we've got a very pale sky to begin with. I'm using ultramarine. Right, now I'm going to use very thin ultramarine first here. I'm going to stand up, excuse me. So you can see what I'm doing. Right, so I'm using it very thin up here because it's a grey-blue cloud. And as you can see, I'm just using very, very pale paint. You can barely see it. What's that writing in the middle of? All right. Right, okay, is that better? Right, so I'm just taking this very wet paint in a crisscross across the painting. What that does is leave little flecks of light, because I'm not being wildly accurate. I'm going to add some more paint to the bottom of this now. Some up here. And you can see that's bleeding up into the cloud. Lovely. Then there's a bit of this down here. Might put a touch of red in that. Overdone it. Right, try again. That's a bit darker, a bit more like what I want. I've added a bit of red to my mix. So I'm just dropping it in while the going is good. Once it starts to dry, you can't do this, so you just have to do the best you can where you are. Now, if I take some blue, true blue, water, I'm just going to drop it in around. It actually bleeds in, I don't mind too much, because I do. The edges of the clouds aren't clear. I've got to do something with this.
Then I'm just going to take that down to the water's edge. Could actually go over the water because it's all the same thing, isn't it? Take it down to the cliff here. And while it's still damp, I can increase the tone in the bottom of the clouds a bit. And because I'm putting in thicker paint, it's not, I hope, going to journey too far, but it will go a little way because this surface is still wet. If it wasn't wet, I couldn't do this. And what I would be doing would be ruining the way the touches of paint are falling. and that would be less than beautiful. Right, so we're getting there. Right, I think I'm going to have to leave it round about there because it's beginning to dry out now, and what I'll get is a lot of cauliflowers, and I don't want that. Okay, now I don't want to work on the water and the cliff edge while that is still wet. So at this stage of the proceedings, I'm going to go down here and do the grassy bit. Using the same blue, which is ultramarine, but this time I'm going to add a bit of yellow ochre to it, or if you haven't got that, raw sienna. And I think you need quite a bit of raw sienna. Can't see it. There we are. Oh, yeah. Okay. Right, change of plan. I'm going to mix some raw sienna by itself. Whole of this area here, including the path, not including the path. I don't mind if I go on the path a little bit, but I'm putting in the raw sienna where the green part of the picture is. I don't think it would harm to go over the path as well, frankly. So it'll make life a bit easier to turn it all around. And as we get down here, I'm increasing the amount of raw sienna I'm putting in. Because as you know, one of the ways of making a piece of countryside or a path or anything like that lie down is to increase the colour. Make it now what I've done is add a bit of my mix now. This is the mix of ultramarine and raw sienna. So I'm just adding a touch of that where the green is. There are patches of sandy colour where the grass is dying, and where it's doing that, you get this sort of sandy coloured grass. All the time you try to make the interventions believable. Over here we want to keep it pale, a bit darker than that, but still pale. A bit more down here. then we get quite dark down here, so we can beef up the mix. This is quite strong down here now. By putting this in, here, I'm strengthening the colouring at the front so that the picture gradually goes off into the distance. It's all just grass pretty well, so that there's not a lot you can do with it to make it. Now, I want to turn that path too much. I just run a little bit of that on the path, and it gets more intense down here. I don't think I should have done that. I think I'll take it out. You can. If you get it out, if you do something that you think is stupid, it's easy enough to put it right again if you do it straight away. You had better wait until that dries a bit. Right, now I'm pretty soggy now, so it's going to be difficult to do very much more. How are we doing for time? Oh, it's only 1:45. We're all right. I've got plenty of time. Right. Well, happy enough with the sky. I think that's working very well. That is, it's not bone dry, but it's drier. So I'll take the water out of my brush, pick up some ultramarine. I want it quite dark, and I want to be as careful as I can with it. So I'm going to turn it round. Am I going to turn it round? I want to keep my hand off the grass if I can. Right, there. That's worked. I'm just going to add a slightly damp brush down here. If you look at the picture, you will see that the water near the shore is a different tone. And if I do it damp, that dark colour will bleed in just a little bit because it's wet and give me that edge that I'm looking for. It worked all right, didn't it? Right, now let's look at the cliff. Cliff is made of the standard Orkney stone, which is a silt stone. The reason we've got all these buildings left is the stone splits beautifully for building, and they haven't got any trees. So they built them in stone instead of wood. Further south, they used wood. It was easier to work with. And of course, it's all disappeared. But the stone ones are still with us, so that makes a good story. If I take some yellow ochre, which is actually quite like the colour of the stone. But I think I want to muck it up a bit. So I'm going to add just a soupçon of umber. This is burnt umber, I think. Just to brown it off a little bit. Now again, you want quite a crisp edge. So there's that one there. And it comes down to this one here. And it goes into the countryside a little bit, like that. I'll just bring that down here. This is the part that goes darker, but we'll leave it like that at the moment. And we'll take this, it's quite a light patch there, and there's a dark patch along here, which is again one of those little walls. There's another little wall across here. And again, I don't mind too much if it disappears into the picture, because I can always work on top of it when it dries. There we are. Right. Now, while we've got this colour, I can use it in some of the other places in the picture where I feel it will add to the story. I'm hurrying it. I want it to dry, and it's not drying. Right. If I add a little bit more sienna, I can make these a bit greener over here. Come on, dry down. Right. This is probably too soon. This is neat burnt umber. Try a bit more. I've taken practically all the water out of the brush. You can see that's what I've done because it's barely moving in this very wet patch. Got a lovely cauliflower there. Looks a bit like a bush, so I'm going to leave it. Bushes are good. As it dries, you can start to put in details that make a bit more of the picture itself. Right. Now, I want this bit not to be quite so. Now put a mere smear of red in that. And just show the brush a little bit of red to bring it up. A little bit of water. Right. Just there. Now I'm going to do something with the path. Well, if we take the colour that we used in the sky, which was ultramarine and red, made a nice purpley colour. I use that on the path here. Right. Thank you, dear. And the path edge isn't going to be straight, so. Right. Just add a little touch of water to that. And it goes back. Mop it up. Now, where we've got the paint there, we need to increase the tone. And then there's a bit around here. Right, I really am hurrying this now, which is a bit silly. There we are. That to be a bit more defined. How can I do that? That helped just a little bit to define the path. I don't want to draw the whole thing. That wouldn't look good at all. I think I can do. There we are. That's the end of the story. It's a fairly simple picture, and you can make more of the actual. If you're there, you can remember the view. This is why I suggested you brought your own pictures if at all possible. But as you can see, you can make more. I mean, I can do a lot more on this grass when it's dried and make that more interesting as a thing. But I try to get the sky done in one go. Mucking about with the sky is never very good value afterwards. So do your best, and people online, let me see your pictures if you feel you can. Remember, there's only me and Lee going to see it, so it should be all right. How are we doing?
Okay, I don't only get feedback, so we'll tell people.
Right, Rachel's going to mend the meeting now, so we'll see you next week, I hope.